In Decoding the War, players are racing against time in order to decipher messages to open the lockbox to win the war. Here are the items that you'll need for this game. First, you'll need the breakout box, and then attached to the breakout box will be the directional lock to lock in the final clue to win the war. Next, you'll need the black lockbox, and inside of that black lockbox, you'll need the thumb drive with the provided image, the ultraviolet light, and then also the letter to Winston Churchill from the code breakers at Bletchley Park. In addition to those things, there are a couple of printouts that you'll need to print out, one of which is a set of QR codes, which will be a total of 7 QR codes, which you have to place around the room, and then a single QR code, which will be the initial prompt for the game to get started. And then finally, you'll need at least one computer with internet access so that the players can retrieve information from online sources. The setup for this game is rather simple. The first thing you want to do is to print up the QR codes that are provided to you, and based on the directions, handwrite out with the invisible ink the special messages on each one of those QR codes, and then place them randomly around the room. Now these are 7 unique codes, so the order does not matter. They just need to be visible and available to everybody in the room. Next, you want to take the flash drive and hide that somewhere near an already present clock in the room. Now, having it near a clock is important to the clues because one of the clues is time-based and it will have to be referenced to a clock that is already present. The 3-digit lockbox can be placed anywhere in the room, visible to all participants. Now, being hidden is not pertinent to the game. Having it out and available will just add a little bit of mystery to the game. Now, the breakout box, the final element that will be opened to win the war, should be placed somewhere towards the front of the room, visible to everybody, as a constant reminder that they are trying to win the war. The last clue that needs to be placed somewhere in the room is the QR prompt. Now, this is the initial prompt to commence the game. Everybody should be aware that this is clue number 1. So here's how the game works. First, you'll need to inform all of the participants of the game that their goal is to open the lockbox, which contains the final clue to win the war. As mentioned before, the QR prompt is the first prompt that will be used to commence the game. Now this prompt asks the question, when was I born? A very generic question, which can be answered when the 7 QR codes from around the room are scanned. Now these QR codes have a message. The message contains, we can only see a short distance ahead, but we can see plenty there that needs to be done. Now that is a famous quote by the pioneer of computer science, Alan Turing, and they will use the code Alan Turing and when was I born to figure out when he was born, which was June 23rd. Now 623 happens to be the code to open up the black lockbox. And contained within that black lockbox is a letter from Alan Turing and his counterparts at Bletchley Park to Winston Churchill requesting some help, as well as the ultraviolet flashlight. Now the black light is going to be used for 2 elements of this part of the game. First, the black light is going to be used on the letter, which is going to reveal a code that says illuminate the QR codes. And with that information, they're going to be directed to go back to the QR codes and use the ultraviolet light on the QR codes, which is going to have another jumbled message that they have to decipher. And that message is, what tracks my best marathon time? Now the participants will need to do a little research to figure out what Alan Turing's best time on a marathon was. And hopefully by that point, they will understand what tracks a marathon is time, which should direct them to the clock in the room. And on that clock, or somewhere near that clock, they will find the flash drive. Now on the flash drive is an image of Alan Turing crossing the finish line with a message of breakoutedu.com/marathon. And on Alan Turing's running bib is the number 140. But in this case, the 4 is circled. Now the 4 is circled because it's key. Now Alan's best running time was 2 hours, 46 minutes, and 3 seconds. But if we take the 4 important elements of that, that is going to be 2463. So with the message on the image, breakoutedu.com/marathon, and 4 digits, they'll be directed to a web page that is password protected, and once they get there, they will have to put in the code of 2463, which will then take them to a letter from Winston Churchill back to the code breakers at Bletchley Park. Now, nobody knows what Bletchley Park is at this particular time, but there are a couple of key elements inside the letter that are needed to complete this breakout game. One of which is understanding the rainbow of colors. Now, that'll play an important role in the final stage of this game. But one thing they'll have to understand is where they are. Now, they don't know exactly where they are because those clues of Bletchley Park have not come out yet. So they'll have to do a little bit of research based on other information contained within the letter. Now, the letter also contains an actual artifact found at Bletchley Park that contains a small sequence of letters which will be used for breaking the final code. And then they will also be prompted to a map from within this letter. Now, this map contains an area of the United Kingdom right around London. And what they'll have to do is they will have to find Bletchley Park on this map, and they will click on it. And what it will then do is open up a Google spreadsheet with a grid of blank boxes, with some of the boxes colored in the array of the rainbow. So now what the participants will have to do is to break the final code. And this is important because the final code is based off of the sample code from the letter from Winston Churchill back to the code breakers. So what they will have to do is lay down the array of letters inside of the provided spreadsheet in the suggested pattern. And once they lay those down, they will notice that certain letters, N, E, W, or S, for north, south, east, or west, will be in the pattern of the rainbow. And from that, they will use the provided pattern based on the directions to open up the directional lockbox and get the final clue to win the war. Now, best of luck to you and your participants as you attempt to decode the war